What is up, Dodger fans? Thank you guys for tuning in to a special pregame episode of the Incline Dodgers podcast presented by TickPick and Fansided. The Los Angeles Dodgers are getting ready to begin a 3-game home series with the Colorado Rockies. Hopefully this series goes better than the last few series that the Dodgers have been playing. They now fall to 11-6 on the season. They're in the midst of a 3-6 stretch after starting 8-0. They've lost 3 consecutive series, including most recently to the Chicago Cubs, where they got absolutely dismantled, especially from Michael Busch and Peter Crow Armstrong. But we'll get into all those games, answer some questions along the way. We've got a big rumor to talk about later on in this episode as well. Jake, where do you want to get started with the Dodgers' poor play as of late?
Well, as I listened to Dodger Talk yesterday, and David Vassegh reminded us that they had a stretch similar to this one at the beginning of last season where they lost multiple series in a row. So that was just for context and maybe telling people to not panic because the Dodgers ended up going on to win the World Series last year. But I kind of feel similarly, like the panic, there should be none. There should be no panic going on right now, despite the fact that the division is a lot better than maybe a lot of people thought it would be. I certainly didn't think that the Padres and the Giants would be keeping pace with the Dodgers like this at least to start the season. I mean, they started out on fire, but the Dodgers have played badly. There's no question about it. They're not playing defense well. They're not running the bases well. They're not scoring runs well. Brought it up all last season and the beginning of this season. If they're not hitting home runs, they're not scoring, and that's a huge issue. They've got to be able to get runners on base. Usually they don't struggle to do that, but they are struggling to do that now. Specifically, the bottom of the order has been terrible. Not getting on base for Ohtani and Betts and Freeman and Teoscar Hernandez and Will Smith. That has to be the goal of the bottom of the order, and they're just not doing it. And the offense is what is really needed to carry this team. That's how they're built. This is a juggernaut of a lineup. I think the best lineup in baseball, and they're not really hitting like it. So it is very frustrating to lose these series, and the way in which they've lost them too has been the more frustrating part, because it's not like these teams are just outclassing them or beating them at their own game. That they are playing very badly, and the other major league teams that they're facing are taking advantage of that.
Best lineup in baseball right now from a performance standpoint. We just saw them. It's the Chicago Cubs. The Los Angeles Dodgers, from an offensive standpoint, they're 18th in baseball right now with a .225 batting average. But on the contrary, they're getting it done with the home run ball. They're second behind the Angels of all teams. They've got 29 home runs. And then when it comes to runners in scoring position, they're not as bad as I thought they were. They're in the middle of the road right now, hitting .250 with the runners in scoring position. But you hit on it earlier. The bottom of the lineup stinks. And this is about as bad as I've seen. I remember we had conversations about the bottom of the order last year, but this is even worse. You've got Kike right now hitting 114. We've seen a lot of Kike because of the Freddie Freeman injury. So he's been the de facto first baseman. Andy Pages hitting 149. He's an everyday regular right now. Miguel Rojas hitting 161. Max Muncy hitting 176. And on top of that, Max Muncy has looked awful from an offensive standpoint. I'm not complaining about the defense, but on offense, he's got 24 strikeouts, over 51 at-bats. He's just striking out way more than anyone else on this Dodgers team right now. He's got a 487 OPS, and I don't know if anyone's noticed, but he's hitting 7th for the most part in the Dodgers lineup. So we've seen Max Muncy kind of fall to the bottom third of the Dodgers order. And then, Andy Pages, it's been a really rough go with him with the stick.
Yeah, I would put a lot more of the responsibility on the everyday starters as opposed to guys like Kike Hernandez and Miguel Rojas, because if all things were fair, if Freddie Freeman was healthy, you'd only really see Kike in there against left-handed pitching. But right now he's having to face both-handed pitchers, and he's not a starting player, as we know. He's much better coming off the bench in a limited role. Similarly with Miguel Rojas, he's old and is primarily a defensive guy, and we're not really expecting him to do much with the bat, and he's having to play a lot more these days because of the Freddie Freeman injury. So I put a lot more of the pressure on Max Muncy and Andy Pages. Those guys need to be better, especially Muncy. He needs to be getting on base. That is clear as day, because if you're not going to be hitting home runs, which he hasn't hit one yet, then you got to be working the count and getting on base and at least making these pitchers work. What I've noticed in this really bad stretch that they've been going on is that their offense is just quiet for like 5-6 innings. Like, they're not even putting pressure on these pitchers. These guys are just kind of going through this order. I can't even remember the name of the guy that pitched in the 16-0 game, but that's the point. Is like, I don't know who the start Brown, I think his name was Ben Brown. I'd never heard of him before.
Well,
but
he's a rookie.
Right. So there should be no reason that a rookie pitcher should be carving up the Dodgers this way. And for them to not even make him work or sweat out there, that is a huge issue. They are not passing the baton. That's the style of offense that they play. So they pass the baton, they work counts. They're not doing that right now. And I'm not panicking by any means, because I feel like once we get into the dog days of summer here and we get later on in the season, we're going to forget what happened in the beginning of April. But these problems are going to come up again at some point when the Dodgers go through another rough stretch, because that's why they're not going to be playing well, if they're not doing the things that we know that they're good at.
Appreciate everyone tuning in. The chat is getting very lively. Hit that like button while you're here. We'll get to some of your guys' questions, but please hit that like button. You took the words right out of my mouth, because the exact phrase I was going to say as well is they're not passing the baton, especially the bottom of the order. And I think that's carrying over into Shohei Ohtani's slump right now, because how is Shohei Ohtani supposed to be productive if he's got no one on base? And not only that, they're not working the counts. So these pitchers are relatively fresh when they get to face Shohei Ohtani, so they can bring their best stuff. But second time and third time through the order, you would have hoped that the second half of the lineup would make these pitchers work a little bit so that they're feeling some fatigue. You work a walk, you get a base hit. Now you've got Shohei Ohtani in a more premier position where he could potentially drive in a runner, because it's not really that easy from a mindset perspective to have the same approach up there if you're batting with the base is empty or there's 2 outs versus you've got a guy on first or second. And I truly believe that does affect a guy like Shohei Ohtani, because let's go back to when he was in the playoffs. He had some crazy stretch where, what was he, like 14 for his last 15 with runners in scoring position? You couldn't get the guy out. But if he's batting with no one on base, it makes it a lot easier for the pitcher to go at him. And not only that, I feel like it puts pressure on Shohei to go for the solo home run instead of a double or a single.
Right. And at some point, do you consider moving Ohtani down in the lineup to put better hitters in front of him? I mean, at what point do you do that? I don't think that they're there yet, and I don't know that they will ever get there. So I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility. But right now, the hitting at the bottom of the order just isn't good enough to get on base, because if you're playing Austin Barnes once or twice a week, that's an automatic out. Miguel Rojas is an automatic out, even though he got on base a little bit in one of those Cubs games. Andy Pages automatic out. Max Muncy automatic out. Kike Hernandez, if it's not a ball that's hit over the fence, he's an automatic out. You just don't have enough production down there. And I'm saying a phrase over and over again that just is not going to work, which is automatic out. These guys are just too easy to get out. And so, yeah, they're going to pitch around these other hitters or go right after them if they know that the rest of the order is just not going to punish them. So it is really frustrating right now to watch, because the Dodgers are getting some good pitching performances. We noted in our last podcast that the starting pitching hadn't been great. We had that Glasnow blow up in Philadelphia. Sasaki's been a little shaky. Snell went on the IL. There's been a lot of sloppy starting pitching. But you know what? Yamamoto's been electric. Glasnow has bounced back and pitched well. Dustin May's pitched well. these guys are, and Sasaki pitched well too in his last outing. These guys are giving what the Dodgers need out of them, and they're just not scoring for them.
I got to retort that one. Props to Roki Sasaki for going 5 innings. That's big for him. But he was spared big time from Andy Pages. If Andy Pages didn't rob Michael Busch, which we'll talk about Michael Busch, of course, in a second, of that grand slam, because that ball was over the wall, this is a completely different narrative. You've got the media probably bashing Roki Sasaki. You've got haters saying in the comments he's not ready for the show. But Andy Pages deserves some credit there because he saved Roki Sasaki from a shelling. He really did. And that wouldn't have been a 16-0 game. That would have been a 20-0 game.
Right. No, I agree. I agree. That was a great defensive play, miraculously by Pages. Why he can't make the routine ones is another question entirely. But yeah, you're right. But my point is that the Dodgers offense just isn't giving enough run support to these starting pitchers. That's all I was saying.
Who would bat leadoff if you move Shohei down?
I think Edman would be my candidate for doing that. Either Mookie or Edman, one of those guys, just to get some guys that can actually hit in front of Ohtani so that he has base runners on. That's what I would do. But I don't think they're going to do that because it seems as though they like Ohtani leading off because it gives them the most at-bats in the lineup as the game goes on. So I completely understand that. Or maybe move someone down that is better, like a Conforto or Will Smith. Put those guys down towards the bottom of the order. I don't know, but what they have right now at 7, 8, 9 is just not cutting.
I don't want Muncy going up. So the argument to that is Muncy's got to do better because
right.
I don't want him above 7 at this point.
No, you can't. You can't.
The problem with Edman is he's the definition of a timely hitter. He gets his big hits at the perfect time, but he's not really a good on-base guy. He's actually got a 290 on-base percentage this season, so that's not really optimal as a leadoff hitter. I'm going back to my point. The bottom of the order needs to step up. So if you have to move Edman down maybe so that he's in front of Ohtani as the 9-hole hitter and he gets some base hits that way or puts pressure on the pitcher, or you move someone else down. Well, actually, you're not moving anyone down. I think you got to make some lineup swaps with AAA guys, but get to that later. We'll focus right now on this Cubs series. So let's go to the game where they lost 16-0 because I've got some complaints, some big complaints too. So I'm about to go off. So hit that like button if you haven't hit that like button yet, because I want the troops to rally behind us, and I want your thoughts on some of these things I'm about to just say right now. I'm about to unload. First of all, Austin Barnes, your time as a Dodger needs to come to an end. Like, Austin Barnes is adding literally no value for the Dodgers right now. He's hitting 0 across the board. He's hitting 0 because he hasn't had a base hit this season. I don't want to hear the bullshit anymore that Austin Barnes calls a good game, because if you're behind the plate calling balls and strikes and your team has suffered the worst home stadium loss in Dodgers history, 16-0, then you're not good at calling games. Not only did he have that blow up, he was behind the plate as well when Justin Robleski had his meltdown and gave up 8 runs or whatever. And I feel like there was another game that Austin Barnes caught and they played like shit too. So he can't throw anyone out. He can't hit. He's not even a good framer at this point anymore. Like, what value does Austin Barnes bring to this team, especially if they're going to be using him more often because they need to give Will Smith more days off? It feels like we're seeing Friday Smith, Saturday Barnes, and then they go back to Smith on Sundays. I don't want to see Austin Barnes starting twice a week for this Dodgers team, because in the past you could make the argument that having him in the lineup wasn't really much of a detriment because Smith played more. But it seems like they're going in a different direction now where they want more off days for Will Smith. So if that means we're going to have more Austin Barnes, that's going to affect the win-loss record, especially if the Padres and the Giants and Arizona is in the mix.
I'm happy that you've come to this conclusion about Austin Barnes, Kevin, because I've already been here. I've been waiting for you to come over to this side of things, because I've watched Austin Barnes for 11 seasons now as a Dodger, and there have been some really great moments. The time he usurped Yasmani Grandal as the starting catcher because for whatever reason, Yasmani Grandal couldn't catch the baseball. It's kind of the number one thing when you're a catcher. So I remember Austin Barnes providing that key hit off Blake Snell in the 2020 World Series. There have been some really great Austin Barnes flashes of moments here, but overall, he's never been a good hitter. And he's never been able to throw anybody out. And at one time, he was a good pitch framer. And it's something that you have said, or that was one of your arguments in favor of Austin Barnes when you were a big fan of his, is that he was a good pitch framer and that Will Smith was not. And now it's getting to the point where you don't really know what value he adds. And really the only value he does add is behind the scenes. There's no, if you look at his stats and what he does on the field, if you just looked at that in a vacuum, there is no place for a player like that on this roster. On the Pirates, maybe. On the Rockies, maybe, when they need to fill roster spots. But not on this one. Not on the Dodgers. Not on the 2024 reigning champion Dodgers. There's no way this level of production can be accepted, especially when you've got a ton of other guys that are performing at the same level. So when you put Austin Barnes in the lineup twice a week, even once a week, that's an automatic out added to a bottom of the order filled with automatic outs. It just is so frustrating when you've got guys in the minor leagues that can hit, like Hunter Freducia or Dalton Rushing. Any one of those guys I would accept at this point. And the argument that, oh, Austin Barnes needs to be Yamamoto's catcher or he needs to be Sasaki's catcher, I just think is ridiculous at this point. It's not worth it. The Sasaki, and especially Yamamoto is paid enough money to figure out how to be a good pitcher with Will Smith behind the plate. And Sasaki has enough hype behind him, even though the Dodgers couldn't really pay him that much money. But he's been a pitcher in Japan without Austin Barnes. So figure it out. I would rather take the hit of Roki Sasaki still trying to figure out his mechanics and all of that stuff with a better hitting catcher behind the plate than to watch Austin Barnes go out there every couple of days. It's mind-blowing. But I honestly don't think that of all the problems the Dodgers have currently, he's at the top of the list. But he is bad.
Sometimes you got to start with the small problems and then you work your way up to the big problems. And Austin Barnes is fat that needs to be trimmed. He's not the biggest piece of fat that needs to be trimmed, but you start somewhere because I am sick of them dragging Hunter Freducia along. He's now 27. It's not like he's some 23-year-old with no minor league experience. He's a 27-year-old minor league vet at this point who's absolutely just raking in AAA for the second year in a row. He's hitting .333 with a 1,100 OPS, a 462 on base, 2 home runs. Like, how could that be worse than Austin Barnes? Even if Hunter Freducia comes up here and hits 250 or 225.
Yeah.
How about this getting worse?
Yeah. How about this point? And this is not something that I've crunched the data on, but I have to imagine that this is the case. Because Austin Barnes is not a good hitter and is a detriment to this lineup, you're forcing to have to play Will Smith more because Will Smith is the better player. And I think that that's really hurt Will Smith over the last couple of seasons. I would prefer to rest Will Smith even more in the first half of the season if they had a replacement like a Freducia or somebody else that could come in and actually hit the ball. That way you can get Smith off his feet even more than you are right now, and you wouldn't have to overplay him.
And then the last point I'll make is, if you really think about it, the amount of guys that the Dodgers call up from AAA, at this point, you've got to imagine Hunter Freducia has a pretty good rapport with these guys, as opposed to Austin Barnes, who's up there at the big league level, like a Robleski, for example. I'm pretty sure Hunter Freducia is more familiar with Justin Robleski than Austin Barnes is, or a Landon Knack, who's been in AAA for a long time too. Have Hunter Freducia catch Landon Knack if you need it. In the bullpen, they've got some guys too, like Ben Kasparius and Jack Dreyer. The list goes on. Like there's a number of guys from the Dodgers minor league organization that Hunter Fiducia, I have to imagine, has caught a number of times. So that's not all I have to complain about this game, though.
Keep going.
Next up, Luis Garcia has to go. That monstrosity of an embarrassing performance he gave us in that 16-0 blowout, slap in the face, disgusting, DFA his ass, get off my team. It was already a blowout. They bring him in garbage time, and he couldn't even get one out. He couldn't get one single out. He gave up 4 runs. They faced whatever amount of batters, but point being, he threw 30-plus pitches, couldn't get a single out. It went from like a 7-0 ball game to 11-0. Complete embarrassment. Luis Garcia has to be a bottom 10 pitcher of the decade that wore a Dodgers uniform, because this guy's been trash. ERA over 7, whip of about 2, and we've seen 8 games from him. That's 8 games too many.
Agreed. They do need a rubber arm down there. They do need a mop-up guy. They do need some guy to come in when the game is out of hand one way or the other, whether the Dodgers are blowing someone out or they're getting blown out. They got to have somebody to call upon in those mop-up roles, and you'd like a guy that could come in and get some outs, like a Bickford kind of guy. But this guy is not it. There's got to be better options in the minor leagues, better options on the DFA market, better options on like the fringes of some of these other teams. There has to be, because he's just not cutting it.
Thank you, Justin Yamas, for tuning in from Europe. You get your shout out that you've requested. Ben Kasparius, he was bad. I know some people,
but he's been good.
He has been good. He literally didn't give up a single run until that performance. I actually didn't have a problem with the way that Dave Roberts used him. I saw a lot of complaints that he shouldn't have gone back out there, but the reality is he's got the ability to be a multi-inning guy. He was a farmhand starter. He can go 2 innings. It's not the end of the world. He had an off night. It happens. He'll bounce back. It's not like the Dodgers offense showed up anyways. They scored 0 runs.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, what is Dave Roberts supposed to do in April when he's got an offense that's completely dead and can't score unless they hit the ball out of the park? And he's got starting pitching that has been rough, and an injured bullpen. They don't have all their weapons. You got to turn to somebody, and you can't just play to, you honestly cannot play to win every single night. I mean, as frustrating as that is, you got to kind of gauge whether or not you can come back in a game. And that game against the Cubs was just getting out of hand really fast. And they didn't score.
They did not score. And I didn't mind the fact that Ben Brown basically owned us, because if you do a little digging into Ben Brown, he's basically the Cubs' top pitching prospect. It'd be like us having River Ryan dick down a team. That's what Ben Brown is. So it's not like it was some obscure minor league journeyman guy that destroyed us. Like, this guy has a pedigree and he has the makeup to actually become a good starting pitcher. But what did tick me off, though, is the next game, Colin Ray out of nowhere decimated the Dodgers. Like, this is a scrub who was mediocre for the Brewers, didn't even really make a legitimate start this season, barely struck anyone out, and there he is throwing gas, 96 down the middle. Dodgers had no answer for him. You cannot let a guy like Colin Ray own you like that. That was putrid.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem to matter who's on the mound. Doesn't matter. It's like Jake Irvin, like anybody on the mound these days facing the Dodgers is just carving them up. It doesn't really matter who it is. The fact is that the Dodgers are going to face tough pitching regardless, but they've got to stick to their game plan, and they're just not doing that. They're not making these guys are breezing through. It's not like they're pitching in and out of jams and they're making tough pitches or whatever. The Dodgers offense is not even making it difficult on these pitchers. They are breezing through. They are at, 60 pitches in like the 6th inning or the 7th inning. Like they're just not knocking these guys off their game.
I feel like people have been a little hard on Andy Pages. He actually has been their best defender so far this season,
Oh
believe it
my
or
God.
not. And that's not even a hot take. Teoscar Hernandez has actually been terrible in right field. I don't like Teoscar Hernandez in right field, if I'm being honest. It's like such a downgrade to go from Mookie Betts to Teoscar. There's been 3 balls hit Teoscar's way that had a catch probability of over 90%, and he missed 3 of them because he doesn't get a good jump on the ball. I don't know what it is about him. He doesn't read it right. Andy Pages had that one atrocious one where we know he went the complete wrong direction. But Andy Pages has also made a few remarkable catches that he doesn't get enough credit for. We already talked about the Roki Sasaki one. He made another one, I think it might have been that same game or it was the day before. I think he made a diving catch. And then Michael Conforto, he's been bad too defensively in left field. He had that ball hit to him last night where literally he didn't hustle, and because he didn't hustle, it was like a ground rule double from Kyle Tucker, and that ended up being basically the difference in the game. But because Conforto's been hitting better, Dodger fans are kind of letting him off the hook as opposed to
also Teoscar Hernandez is a good hitter too. So you're gonna kind of be a little bit more lenient on that. I actually wanted to talk about the Conforto thing because I heard Vassay talking about maybe Conforto doesn't know Dodger Stadium that well yet, and maybe thought he was closer to the stands than he was and didn't have enough room to make the catch. So there is that. Those are growing pains. But yeah, I mean, you're a major league outfielder. You've got to make that catch. You just have to. The thing is like you saying that Andy Pages is the best defender in the outfield when you've just listed all these 3 guys is kind of a low bar. It really is. When we're talking about Conforto, who doesn't have a lot of range, not a lot of speed, Teoscar Hernandez, not a great outfielder as it is, you've basically got the equivalent of 3 left fielders basically scattered across the outfield. Pages is, I think, a better corner outfielder than he is a center fielder. I think we've gone over that. So you've got guys playing out of position in the outfield, especially Pages and Teoscar Hernandez. Conforto is right where he should be. But then you got the infield. You've got Mookie playing out of position. He's playing shortstop. You got, Muncy, who had some growing pains last season, trying to really learn how to play third base, even though he's a better first baseman. Then you've got Miguel Rojas spelling, Tommy Edman at second base. He's not that great at second base. And then Tommy Edman's just good everywhere. Like he made a great catch in center field the other night. He's been making amazing plays at second base. The Dodgers are weird because they spent so much money on this roster, and you look at the names on this roster and you think this is the greatest team ever assembled. That's something that we were talking about in the offseason, but obviously you got to play the games. And for all those fans saying like, oh, why do we even watch anymore? It's just bullshit. The Dodgers are going to win. It's like, do you even know baseball? Like, that's ridiculous. You got to watch the games. The crazy shit happens every single night. Any team can win from any single situation. It's not a foregone conclusion that the Dodgers are going to win the World Series. It's going to be a dogfight. But it is just bizarre to me that they've assembled this team and they've paid zero attention to defense. Like zero. Like, we're just going to experiment here and try Mookie Betts at shortstop and stick to that, even though he's played okay over there and has made some good plays. But it's like they're playing all these guys out of position. So of course the defense isn't going to be great. I want to see what happens when we get towards the middle of the season, the dog days of summer, like I was talking about, to where we can really see if this defense is as bad as we're seeing it is. But you can't expect this to be a lockdown defense when you got all these guys out of position.
I expect him to perform, but I do think there is some pressure on Michael Conforto because the addition of him kind of caused this mess in the outfield because he's not a premier defender, and it would have been nice if he was a good center fielder or right field position player. But if he's not hitting, we're jumping way ahead here. Then you've got to probably bench Conforto and move Teoscar to left field and maybe Pages to right field, and then you get a center fielder, which will be a nice transition in just a second. But we got to talk about Michael Busch. Like the Dodgers' approach with Michael Busch in this series
horrible
is shamefully bad. Like you let him hit the first home run, then he almost hits a grand slam, but Pages robbed him, and then he just continues to go nuclear. The Dodgers need to do something about Michael Busch when they go to Wrigley in a few weeks, because lifetime against the Dodgers now, 326 batting average, 370 on base, 744 slugging, which is 1100 OPS, 4 home runs, 12 RBIs, and he scored 11 runs as well. And I don't see the doubles, but oh wait, here we go. And 12 doubles. Wait, no, sorry, 6 doubles. 6 doubles.
Yeah, I was looking, I brought up those stats myself because I just had to see, because it felt like he was just destroying us every time. And yep, 326, 4 bombs, 12 RBIs. I mean, he is just continuing to punish the Dodgers for trading him, or for at the very least not playing him as much as maybe he thought he should be playing. They've got to do something about him, because you look at that Cubs lineup and there are guys to pitch around, and he needs to be one of them. They need to respect him. I don't think they're respecting him right now. They're throwing him too many hittable pitches and he's destroying them. And to me, it's like, you got to know going into a series who you're not going to let beat you. And he has to be one of those guys, because right now you look at that team and you think it's Tucker, obviously, and Seiya Suzuki. Those are and Dansby Swanson. Like, those are the 3 guys that you look at and you're like, I can't let those guys beat me. Michael Busch needs to be added to that list, and maybe the main guy that you can't let beat you. Go after the other guys. I don't know what it is with Michael Busch. I don't know if he has a chip on his shoulder. He doesn't really speak much, so I don't really know what he's thinking. But certainly his play on the field indicates that he likes to torch the Dodgers and has done a really good job at that. He every time I, because I didn't watch every inning of every one of those Cubs series, but every time the lead changed or the Cubs grabbed the lead or scored, Busch was always involved every single time.
He clearly took the way the Dodgers handled him and then traded him away personally. And you look at Michael Busch, you look at Max Muncy right now, you got to hope that Max Muncy starts to step up, because I said it when the Dodgers traded Michael Busch, he might become the next Max Muncy, and that could be Michael Busch of the Chicago Cubs, because I do believe he is a talented bat, and clearly against the Dodgers, he makes us well aware of his talent. It's like
also the other thing that bothers me about this Michael Busch like surge that's happened brings us back to our other points, which is, why can't we get that? We drafted this motherfucker. Why can't we get someone like that to come onto the scene? Why isn't Andy Pages that guy? Like, why can't we get a hitting prospect that jumps onto the scene and just erupts like we had with Seager and Bellinger and Smith? Like, we haven't had that for so long. And of course, the guy that we can't find a roster spot for, we trade away and just haunts our dreams. But you know that if he had a Dodgers uniform on, I don't think he's doing this.
Maybe not, because of the opportunities they didn't want to give him. But at least Miguel Vargas sucks, if that makes you feel better. He's doing 148 for the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah, I guess it does make me feel so much better.
All right. We've got a big rumor to talk about. First, it was reported on some random White Sox site about a week ago. And then Bob Nightingale reported it a couple days ago, or maybe it was yesterday. But regardless, the Dodgers have been in talks with the Chicago White Sox surrounding their star center fielder, Luis Robert Jr. I feel like we talked about Robert a lot last season because the Dodgers were linked to him. Nightingale reports, friend of the show, that the Dodgers have been in recent talks with the White Sox, though those talks are on hold right now. But basically, the trade package is looking like Robert to the junior in exchange for James Outman and a top prospect. Initial thoughts on the move or the rumor?
It's my same response to the last time this came up, which was around the trade deadline, which is this guy worth it? Like, is he worth it production wise? Is he worth it health wise? Because if you remember, he's not been particularly healthy in his career. And right now, just pulled up his stats. He's hitting 163 with 1 home run and 4 RBIs for a White Sox team that isn't expected to win any games. There's no pressure, and he's not hitting well. And for me, if I'm Luis Robert Jr., I want to be performing well because I want to get off that team. Like, I want to be an attractive trade piece to join a contender at some point. So I don't like that. I don't like the makeup of this. And supposedly he's a good center fielder. That would help defensively. And of course, like, he has the potential to be an all-star talent and a fixture in this Dodgers, lineup for years to come if he stays healthy and plays up to his potential. But I just feel like there's just too much risk involved in acquiring a player that has this many uncertainties.
Yeah, so shout out to Julian Giarte on Instagram, who also wanted us to talk about Luis Robert. This could age terribly, but I just don't get the hype with this guy. Like, you mentioned his stats this season, and even last season he sucked. He hit 224 with a 278 on base, just 14 home runs, just 35 RBIs last season. And it's not like there's any pressure on him to perform. You would think with no pressure, a lot of meaningless games, he would just go out there and rake the ball because there's just not intensive competition. But instead, he's doing the opposite, and he's actually playing terribly. So I don't know how I'm supposed to expect him to come to the Dodgers and all of a sudden turn into some superstar. Like, he is good defensively, but offensively, this screams a lot of red flags, and I don't know what appeal he brings to the Dodgers, to be honest. It just feels like a lot of baggage.
Yeah. I mean, I think like another name that I've seen kicked around that might be a little bit more attractive would be someone like a Lars Nootbaar, someone that has, a really good track record of being a good defender. Obviously, a former teammate of Tommy Edman. He's got I believe he played on Team Japan in the World Baseball Classic. So there's that connection. And he has a 380 on base percentage. You put that guy at the bottom of this order, getting on base, that's your guy. And he has speed. So that's a guy that could get on base for Ohtani. And that's all you really need is some guy to patrol center field and be a guy that can get on base. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of pop and he doesn't really hit for average, but honestly, I mean, he had 12 home runs last year. That's enough. And he had a 342 on base percentage. That's really good. 759 OPS. That's pretty good. So I feel like that guy is a much better fit for this roster than Luis Robert. What do you think about that?
I'm going to pivot here. So to continue with the question and expand it further from Oscar Ariano, who asked us on Instagram about talking about trade deadline moves, even though it's early, throwing out some predictions there. If I had to pick one player now that I want to add to the Dodgers, and this is why it will be a time will tell thing because there's still a lot of time left, I would want Nolan Arenado, to be honest. And
you wouldn't or would?
I would want Nolan Arenado.
You want him.
I would prefer him in the lineup over Luis Robert. I feel like Nolan Arenado has proven it throughout the entirety of his career. He's going to go into the Baseball Hall of Fame. He's the type of player that if you put him in the Dodgers lineup and now he's hitting 6th or 7th for us, he's going to get on base. He's going to drive in a lot of runs and he's going to thrive in a good environment. And he's the best there is defensively at his position. I think the Dodgers can figure out this outfield situation internally. I'm hoping that maybe they move Tommy Edman into center field, and that can kind of be a little bit of a band-aid here. And then you hope that the Korean sensation Hae-sung Kim lives up to some type of standard and is serviceable out there. Because right now he's raking in AAA, and I know it's AAA, so I'm not going to get all excited and get premature here and explode all over the place. But he is doing well. He's hitting 290 in AAA with 3 home runs and 13 RBIs, 943 OPS, and we know he's good defensively. So you put Arenado at third. I guess you keep Mookie at shortstop, but then Kim can play a nasty second base. You move Tommy Edman to center field if we really have to, even though I want him to play second base. But if that's how it's got to be, or Kim goes to center field, that might be the answer. And you can platoon him with Pages, or you can platoon him with a bat you acquire at the deadline who could be more of a platoon guy.
Yeah, well, why not get Newt Barr and Arenado in a deal? Like, I mean, if you're going shopping at the St. Louis Cardinals store, that's what I would do, because I think you do need to fix this outfield situation. I don't think that it's enough to kind of band-aid it. And if you're going to make Tommy Edman the center fielder, I think you got to make him the center fielder. I don't think that you can have a platoon situation in center field, especially when you've got Mookie Betts at shortstop, a project, if you will, at shortstop, a work in progress at shortstop. That's tough. Up the middle defense is the most important infield positions defensively, and you can't have a revolving door at those 3 positions. I'm talking about shortstop, second base, and center field. So I wouldn't mind Tommy Edman playing center field, but what I don't want is him playing center field one day, then back to second, then to center field. This guy is one of your star players. You can't have him just switching positions every second.
I'm going to go through some chat questions. So if you got any questions for us, drop them below in the chat. Doesn't even have to be Dodgers. You can ask us some random question. We'll go for it. So Javier T earlier asked, is Kim or Rosario going to get a chance soon? I imagine this is Eddie Rosario. I don't want Eddie Rosario near this Dodgers team. I don't think we need another corner outfielder. Kim, I think Kim is coming. It might be late April, early May, but it's coming.
At this point, I don't know. I mean, I know that's the problem we talk about with this dead weight on this roster. It's like you've got Rojas and Taylor and like these guys that should not be on this team that are blocking guys like Kim from being here and being useful. That's what bothers me most about the way that they've built this roster, is that there's too many roadblocks.
Dennis Gonzalez, how long does Van Scoyoc have left as the hitting coach?
A lot longer, since they won the World Series. A lot longer. That goes for the rest of this coaching staff. We've talked about Van Scoyoc before and how we're not very happy with his approach sometimes and his, seeming to inability to make in-game adjustments when the Dodgers aren't hitting well. I don't think that this is going to be an issue that is going to plague them the entire season. They're not going to be hitting this badly for the whole year because they've got too much talent on this roster. But, I'm not the biggest fan of Van Scoyoc, but I will say that the Dodgers did win the title last year and he was the hitting coach and they did hit really well in the playoffs.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere this season. They just won the title, like you said. So he'll have this full year as a leash. And if they were to sputter next year, then maybe they Mike Malone his ass. But for now, he's safe. Okay, so another big update I wanted to get into real quick. Same reporter, Bob Nightingale, mentioned that one Dodgers connection he has mentioned that there's a possibility Shohei Ohtani might not return to the Dodgers rotation until around the All-Star break, which clearly is a lot different than the early expectations of we would get Shohei Ohtani maybe in May. But based off what I've been reading and the updates were being provided, it doesn't even seem like Shohei Ohtani is big league ready to pitch yet because he's not even throwing sliders really. He's just been throwing fastballs. And it doesn't seem like the Dodgers are going to rush Ohtani into this situation anyways. But the one question that kind of is born out of this whole thing now is, what are they going to do about the 6-man rotation? Because they're clearly doing it. They're just not acting committed to it.
It's weird because they don't really have the luxury of doing this. They don't have enough good pitching, which is a weird thing to say, but they don't. Blake Snell is on the IL, and according to his best buddy, Dave Vassay, he's coming back soon. But again, another injury-prone pitcher. Glasnow, Kershaw, all these guys have been hurt, or guys like Sasaki are figuring it out. So I don't think that they have enough pitching to be able to do this 6-man rotation and to rely on Shohei Ohtani coming back after Tommy John. I just don't see how it's going to work. And that's tough because you've got 3 pitchers, including Ohtani, in this rotation that are used to 6-man rotations. I'm talking about Yamamoto and Sasaki. So I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe acquire more pitching. I hope Bobby Miller becomes something, because they're going to need him. I hope Landon Knack figures it out. He looked bad. I hope Robleski works out. He looked terrible. So there's a lot of guys that could fill into this rotation and be mainstays. They just have to be better than what they're doing.
It's funny you mentioned Bobby Miller. There's rumors that Bobby Miller is going to be called up for a spot start in this Colorado Rockies series. So you'll get Dustin May tonight. I believe it's Landon Knack tomorrow. And then they're going to spot start a AAA guy. And by accounts, it looks like it's going to be Bobby Miller. So we'll see Bobby Miller make his 2025 Dodgers debut. But I mean, I don't know how the Dodgers are going to keep these arms healthy if they're not going to commit to a 6-man or rely on 5 starters that can go 5 innings consistently. Because you look at Roki Sasaki, he's clearly not ready for 5 innings consistently. I don't know how they're going to keep him fresh for a full season. At some point, they're going to have to phantom IL or give Roki a breather. I expect the same with Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Last season, he missed a tremendous amount of time. I think it'd be kind of risky to have Yamamoto make 33 starts. Definitely it's the same case for Tyler Glasnow. I mean, he is as injury prone as it gets. You can't have him pitch a full season. And then with Blake Snell dealing with that shoulder injury when he comes back, you need to keep him under wraps as well and make sure he doesn't overwork himself. So as good as this Dodgers rotation is on paper, it's pretty fragile.
It is. It really is.
So anything else you want to cover real quick before we kind of just get into final thoughts and quickly highlight this series?
I just feel like this is the point I made at the beginning. Like, do not panic right now. Like, please don't. It's the Dodgers are playing badly, but that's what happens to every team throughout a long season. And this team is too talented to be just getting boat raced at home by the Cubs. So caution. I don't really have any other notes other than, I mean, there were a few things that pissed me off during these games, and now I can't remember what they were, but they were frustrating games to watch. Let's just say that.
Good point by Craig Osterberg in the chat. Clayton Kershaw is beginning his rehab assignment. So that's kind of a good sign for Kershaw to be back as soon as he's eligible to be off the 60-day IL, which I believe is late May. So if the Dodgers get Kershaw back sooner rather than later, certainly, that's a good reinforcement to have in your rotation and probably a better option than a Robleski or Landon Knack at this point. So I didn't think I'd be saying this, but I'm excited for Kershaw to return soon rather than later.
Yeah, I'm excited for Kershaw to come back. I at this point, like, I think my prediction is that he's going to be good.
I hope you're right. Dodgers, Rockies. Rockies have been trashed. I believe they were like 3-12. They just got shut out 3 consecutive games by the Padres in a sweep. So knowing how things will work, the Rockies will score some runs tonight. But they're facing Antonio Sensatella, who I know he's had a few games where he's randomly shown up against the Dodgers, but he's also had some games where he's just gotten completely shelled by the Dodgers. And I truly believe deep down that the Dodgers are going to boat race and knock him out of this game early. I think they're going to score at least 4 runs off Sensatella, and then you get the Rockies bullpen and they'll tack on a few more. So I think they're going to win this series. I would hope they win this series. I'm very optimistic about this game, though. I think Shohei Ohtani has. I think Ohtani and Betts have big games tonight, and Conforto is going to drive in a run.
This is a 3-game series, right?
Yes.
This needs to be a sweep. It just needs to be. I don't want 2 out of 3, and I don't want to lose this series either, but I need this to be a sweep. This Rockies team is terrible. Chris Bryant just went on the IL, not like he was doing anything anyway, but it's like these in Senzatella, how many times are they going to throw that guy out there? Like, this needs to be a sweep. The Dodgers need to get right during this homestand so that they can get some confidence back in this team. And there's no better way to do that than with the Colorado Rockies. This needs to be a sweep. It starts tonight.
Justin Yamas, do we need to trade for a starter now that Ohtani won't be starting till July? I don't think the Dodgers will trade for a starter just yet, but I think we're going to see them go through a rotation of guys. Nick Frasso might make his debut pretty soon. Landon Knack will probably be in the rotation. Bobby Miller, that's the X factor there. If Bobby Miller can look like a competent starter once again, I mean, that would be a huge addition for the Dodgers because he was our top pitching prospect, for crying out loud. So Bobby Miller needs to show up. Otherwise, Bobby Miller is going to be a name we float around come trade deadline and get his ass out of town.
Yeah, he's got a lot to prove.
BC, when's the Incline Dodgers podcast meetup? That's a good question. I'm going to have to think about that one, BC, and get back to you. But yeah, that's a reminder for anyone to join our Discord channel. See if I can drop the link in time. But I think that's all I got for right now. It's been a little bit of a downturn for the Dodgers, but they're going to step up against this Rockies team, no doubt in my mind. And if we lose this series, then I'll come on the next show and make an apology about how wrong I was. But I'm very confident. I'm very confident in us right now.
Yes.
I'm not worried yet. Anything else, Jake?
Nope. Just this is just a rough patch. It's the big, mid-April, so got a long ways to go.
Lakers Saturday. Any quick predictions there?
The Angels.
Oh, sorry.
Is that what you said?
Lakers Saturday. They got the Timberwolves. Any quick predictions there?
I think the Lakers are winning this series. I think out of the possible matchups that they could have gotten, like Golden State or Denver, I think Minnesota is the best matchup for the Lakers. And I have confidence in this team. I have confidence in JJ Redick. I like the fact that the Lakers are not playing in the play-in tournament. That's huge because we've got an older, star in LeBron James, and we don't need him playing extra games that he doesn't need to be playing. So I think the Lakers are going to win this series against the T-Wolves.
I'm right there with you. I've got the Lakers winning this, and I want to say it's going to be a sweep, but knowing how things work out, it'll probably go 5, but
yeah,
I'm very confident. So I'm feeling pretty good. Okay. Well, bad day to play Tanner Houck in fantasy. He just gave up 11 runs to the Tampa Bay Rays. Well, I think that's my cue to get out of here. Well, everyone, have a great week. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you're listening on the audio feed, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching the YouTube show, post live feed. Drop a comment below. Let us know what you would do with the Dodgers outfield situation right now, and vent away if you're a Luis Robert guy or not.